For years, Mark Consuelos was the safe choice, the charming husband, the daytime host, the guy who showed up with a smile every morning. Then he took a role surrounded by firings, boycotts, and a director who refused to continue. Scream 7 was falling apart when he signed on. Now his character carries a name tied to a past victim, and fans are already building theories. His own family knows nothing about what he filmed. The studio won't say a word, and the release date is getting closer. What exactly did Mark Consuelos agree to? Mark Consuelos entered the world on March 30th, 1971, in Zaragoza, Spain, and everything about his early life moved in ways he never expected. His mother, Camilla, was Italian, and his father, Saul, was Mexican, so the house carried three cultures at once. He grew up listening to different languages flowing around him, switching between Italian and Spanish before he ever heard English. He was the youngest of three, watching his brother study to become a doctor and his sister prepare for law school, while he tried to figure out what path belonged to him. That mix of cultures shaped him in quiet ways. And just when he started settling into life in Spain, his family moved again, this time to the United States. He was only 4 when they arrived in Lebanon, Illinois, with little warning and little time to adjust. He stepped into a place where nothing felt familiar, and he could barely communicate since Italian was the only language he knew well. That sense of being dropped into a new world stayed with him and slowly pushed him toward the idea that he might have to build his own identity rather than inherit one. Life in small-town America moved slowly and felt strange. Lebanon had just over 4,000 people, and for a boy who carried 3 cultures inside him, every day felt like a puzzle he was trying to solve. He watched his siblings follow traditional career paths, and even though he loved them, he knew deep down that he didn't belong on the same road. His family eventually moved to Brandon, and later Tampa, Florida, and those warmer streets felt a little easier. In high school at Bloomingdale Senior, he finally found something that clicked. He joined a local production of Hello, Dolly at the Looking Glass Playhouse in Valrico. The moment he stepped on stage, something inside him settled. He felt seen in a way he had never felt in Illinois or Spain. His parents didn't understand why he was drawn to theater, but they watched him grow more confident with every rehearsal. The Playhouse became a little island where he didn't feel like an outsider. It gave him a sense of belonging that balanced everything he struggled with outside the stage doors. After graduating high school, he headed to the University of Notre Dame in Indiana because it carried the kind of weight his family respected. But the cold was brutal, and every winter morning felt like a fight he didn't want to keep having. He lasted only 1 year before transferring to the University of South Florida, returning to the warmth he grew up in. The decision surprised everyone around him, but he knew he couldn't shape a life around discomfort just because it looked impressive on paper. He earned a marketing degree from USF in 1994 to satisfy his father's wish for a business background. But even while studying, he felt detached from the world of corporate careers. He once asked his counselor which business track was easiest, and that question made him realize he wasn't meant to spend his life in meetings or pressed suits. When he graduated, he dropped marketing almost instantly and leaned into acting, even with all its uncertainty. The uncertainty came hard. In the early 1990s, after finishing college, he needed money to survive while trying to get acting jobs. That was when he took a job as a roadie for a group of male strippers in the Tampa Bay area. He carried equipment, set up stages, and learned how unpredictable nightlife could be. Then, in 1993, a friend pushed him to try performing. He said yes because he needed the money. And suddenly, he found himself under the lights at clubs like Stinger's, wearing outfits he never imagined wearing. His stage name was Meat, and customers tipped him by slipping bills into his costume while he walked around the club. It was gritty and wild, but it kept him afloat. Photos from 2021 showed him as a muscular young dancer with no sign of the calm, polished man the world would later know. Even Kelly Ripa laughed years later when she talked about that time, calling him gorgeous and determined, doing whatever it took to hold on to his dream. His path into acting wasn't planned at all. In 1991, still in college, a friend invited him to an acting class for fun. He expected to laugh through it, but by the end of that first session, he felt something shift. He liked slipping into other characters, and that excitement grew fast. He started auditioning for tiny productions and student plays, testing himself in ways he hadn't before. That decision planted the seed that led to his first real break in 1995, when he booked All My Children. But before that happened, he lived a strange double life. By day, he was a struggling actor learning lines and chasing auditions. By night, he was Meat, performing at stingers and earning enough to keep going. Some of the dancers he worked with later inspired the movie Magic Mike. The contrast between his daytime dreams and his nighttime reality gave him a deep understanding of what people do for survival and how far someone can go when they refuse to quit. When 1995 arrived, everything began shifting again. He auditioned for the role of Mateo Santos on All My Children, and casting director Judy Bly Wilson believed immediately that he was the one they had been searching for. She told the executives she found him, but they hesitated for weeks, unsure if he was the right choice. During that time, he started filming scenes, even though nothing was official. It was one of the strangest situations in soap opera casting history. He had to screen test repeatedly while already playing the character. Every day on set felt like a test he might fail without warning. Wilson fought for him constantly, demanding that the producers make a decision, and finally they agreed. Her belief in him became one of the most important turning points in his life, because without it, he might have been replaced before anyone saw what he could really do. Then, something happened that no one could have predicted. When he and Kelly Ripa auditioned together, the chemistry between them felt immediate and intense. Susan Lucci later said their connection was so obvious that people on set joked they needed a private room. Kelly had seen his headshot before meeting him and felt drawn to him right away, telling people that he was the one. Their on-screen romance started unfolding naturally, and soon the lines between acting and real life blurred. They became friends for a week, which they still joke about, but that friendship quickly shifted into something deeper. Their relationship moved fast, and cast members watched it unfold with growing excitement. Dating on set meant every gesture they shared was observed by the crew and executives. They worked together daily, filming emotional scenes while developing a private romance in front of millions of viewers. The pressure was heavy, but they held on. Then, in 1996, right before they planned to elope, Mark panicked. He broke up with her a week before the wedding. Kelly ignored his calls because she was heartbroken, and he realized immediately that he had made a mistake. They reconciled almost instantly, and soon after they eloped, turning their intense on-screen connection into a lifelong bond. It all started with a mistake that hit Mark Consuelos harder than he ever expected. Just 1 week before his planned wedding in April 1996, he broke up with Kelly Ripa. The decision lasted only minutes in his mind, but the damage stretched across days that felt endless. He called her again and again. She did not answer. That silence cut deep. He later said that single week was the most torturous period of his life, and that he never wanted to feel that kind of regret again. What made it worse was that they could not escape each other. Both were starring on All My Children, and their characters were scheduled to get married on screen at almost the exact same time. Every day on set became a reminder of what he had thrown away. Mark later admitted he ended the relationship out of foolishness, and working beside Kelly while carrying that weight only sharpened the pain. That emotional pressure quietly pushed events toward one of the most unexpected turns in Hollywood romance. Even after the breakup, the network refused to give them space. ABC forced them to appear together at promotional events because the show's storyline could not pause for real-life heartbreak. When they arrived for one of those appearances, Mark saw Kelly and instantly knew how badly he had messed up. She looked effortless and calm, wearing a Chanel jacket with a simple kerchief, and it completely undid him. He later joked that she looked suddenly French, but underneath the humor was pure regret. Neither of them wanted to be there, yet their publicist insisted. During the press segment, they barely spoke. They stood close, smoked cigarettes to calm their nerves, and pushed through the awkwardness. The tension was thick enough to feel, but that forced closeness reopened something they had both been trying to bury. Without meaning to, the pressure began pulling them back toward each other. When the event finally ended, Mark followed Kelly as she headed back toward her apartment on the west side of Manhattan. He asked her to walk with him through Central Park. At first, she resisted. Trust did not come easily after what had just happened. Still, he kept talking, and eventually she agreed. They walked and talked, slowly unpacking the breakup, the fear, and the feelings that never really disappeared. Step by step, the conversation softened. The walk ended at Mark's apartment downtown, and that was where everything shifted. He proposed. Kelly did not believe him. She told him to ask again when he meant it. Mark did not hesitate. He said he was completely serious and reminded her they had a day off the next day. Then he said it out loud. They should fly to Las Vegas and get married. That walk through the park turned a collapse into a reunion and quietly set the stage for something no one saw coming. Back inside the apartment, he asked again, just as she demanded. This time, there was no doubt in his voice. Kelly agreed, still cautious but willing to leap. On May 1st, 1996, they flew to Las Vegas and told no one. They were married at the Chapel of the Bells, spending just $179 on the entire ceremony. No guests. No announcements. For months afterward, they lived in separate apartments and kept the marriage secret from friends, family, and even co-workers. Kelly later laughed and called it the most efficient and cost-effective wedding imaginable. That secrecy only added to the legend, turning their love story into something people still talk about decades later. While their personal lives were unfolding, Mark's career had already taken shape in front of millions. In 1995, he landed the role of Mateo Santos on All My Children, after a casting director reportedly had to fight for him. At 24 years old, Mark stepped into a role that would define daytime television for years. Mateo became a phenomenon, and his romance with Haley Vaughn, played by Kelly Ripa, pulled in massive audiences. The on-screen chemistry spilled into real life, leading directly to their marriage in 1996. Mark earned 3 Daytime Emmy nominations during his run, a rare achievement for a soap opera actor, and his portrayal of Mateo helped shift how Latino characters were represented on daytime TV. The role stayed with him for nearly a decade and cemented his place as one of the most recognizable faces of the 1990s. Years later, he shattered that image in a way no one expected. In 2012, Mark appeared on American Horror Story, Asylum as Spivey, a violent and deeply disturbing inmate. From his first scene, the character was impossible to forget. He assaulted Kit Walker, played by Evan Peters, and later committed grotesque acts that unsettled even seasoned viewers. The transformation from soap opera heartthrob to sadistic criminal-stunned audiences. Mark described the role as super dark, and that darkness marked a clear pivot in his career. Even with limited screen time, the performance lingered, proving he was willing to take risks that challenged how people saw him. That willingness paid off in a massive way when he joined Riverdale in 2017 as Hiram Lodge. Over 4 seasons, he became the show's central villain, earning between $15,000 and $25,000 per episode and an estimated $1 to $2 million total. Hiram was cold, controlled, and dangerous, and Mark played him with quiet authority that made the character strangely compelling. The role pushed him fully into primetime drama and showed a depth that went far beyond his soap roots. Fans loved to hate Hiram, and his presence helped anchor the series through its most dramatic arcs. The role became even more layered when Mark shared the screen with his real-life son, Michael Consuelos. Michael played a younger version of Hiram in flashback scenes, creating a rare father and son dynamic both on and off camera. They talked extensively about the character's psychology, his hunger for power, and his fear of being insignificant. Those conversations bled into the performances, adding emotional weight that viewers could feel even if they did not know the family connection. Hiram's story came to an end in October 2021, when the character was exiled from Riverdale. The showrunner praised Mark for being nothing like the villain he portrayed, calling him kind, professional, and generous. Mark returned once more in Season 7 for a final appearance, closing the chapter with purpose. The farewell confirmed what years of risk-taking had already proven. Mark Consuelos was not just a former soap star. He was an actor who knew how to evolve and leave a mark. That evolution followed him into daytime television again in February 2023, when ABC announced he would replace Ryan Seacrest as Kelly Ripa's co-host on Live with Kelly and Mark. The reaction was immediate and loud. Accusations of nepotism flooded social media. Critics argued that Mark's background did not match the demands of a live talk show and compared his experience to Seacrest's nearly 6-year run. Some viewers claimed the hiring only happened because Kelly had influence behind the scenes. Others said the chemistry of the show changed overnight. Once Mark joined, fans began complaining about the shift in tone. The show felt more like a window into their private life than a traditional talk format. Viewers grew tired of hearing about dinners, pets, and daily routines. Some even criticized Mark's on-air demeanor, calling his smile unsettling and distracting. Despite the noise, the ratings stayed steady. Kelly remained the highest-paid host, earning about $22 million per year, roughly $120,000 per episode, while Mark's salary stayed undisclosed. Combined, their hosting income was estimated to exceed $28 million annually, and Mark's overall net worth hovered around $40 million. Mark Consuelos' world at home has always felt warm and full, and every part of it kept stretching forward as his family grew. He and Kelly Ripa welcomed 3 children who shaped the rhythm of their lives. Michael Joseph arrived on June 1797, and everyone who knows him talks about how steady he is at 28, as if he grew up with a compass built inside him. Lola Grace came next on June 16, 2001, and Kelly still laughs when she remembers how a psychic on her very first test episode once hinted at Lola's future, before Lola was even old enough to know what she wanted. Their youngest, Joaquin Antonio, born on February 24, 2003, followed a different trail entirely and stepped away from the entertainment world. Kelly admitted that watching him leave for college felt brutally painful, and the quiet that settled afterward was something she never felt ready for. Still, the family stayed close, always finding their way back to each other as they grew older. Life inside their marriage wasn't always smooth, though, and sometimes the pressure around them made everything feel shaky. In 2020, Mark talked openly about a night when jealousy got the better of him while filming in Boston. He couldn't reach Kelly in New York, and instead of calming down, he booked a flight home and created a story about flowers being delivered to their apartment. Kelly heard the doorman's call and thought something sweet was coming her way. She opened the door with a mop in her hand and a bathrobe tied loosely, only to see Mark searching around the apartment like a detective who wanted to catch a thief. She teased him later for the theatrics, and he admitted he didn't trust his own feelings back then. Over time, the memory turned into one of those stories they share with a laugh, because the sting faded and the lesson stayed. Their kids had their own stories too, ones that turned into family legends because of how boldly life barged in without warning. Lola walked in on them once during a family trip to Italy when she turned 8, and nobody in the room that day forgot the silence that followed. 8 years later, on her 16th birthday, she burst through their bedroom door again and froze like the world had collapsed right in front of her. She said everything turned gray in her mind after that, and Kelly could only shake her head while retelling it. Each time they thought they learned their lesson, they realized they needed stronger locks and a little more caution. Those moments became jokes on their talk show, reminders that even a celebrity family deals with strange and awkward surprises that turn ordinary days into memories. Their conversations about relationships often spilled into the public eye, especially when modern life brought new questions. In December 2023, Kelly asked on air whether liking someone's posts on Instagram counted as emotional cheating. Mark didn't quite understand the idea at first, and said messages could sometimes drift into something deeper even without physical contact. Kelly, with her old-fashioned view, said kissing meant more to her than anything else. She admitted the whole topic made her uneasy, and Mark felt the same, so they eased away from it. Later that week, Kelly posted a holiday photo without wearing pants, and the comments exploded, proving that social media had a way of stirring up talk even when they weren't trying. It showed how relationships now stretch across screens, and even decades of marriage can't stop new questions from showing up. The life they built together kept growing in other ways too. Mark's net worth climbed to around $40,000, while Kelly's reached almost $120,000, giving them a combined nest of about $160,000. Acting, hosting, producing, and real estate all played a part. Their company, Milojo Productions, created work like the Netflix series Cheer, and their property investments climbed beyond $45,000. Mark's earnings came from shows like Riverdale and different endorsement deals, while Kelly's steady rise through television made her one of daytime's most successful hosts. Together, they became a pair people point to when talking about how to blend talent, business sense, and partnership. That foundation made the news about Mark joining Scream 7 even more surprising because it pulled him into a darker world far from morning television. On January 28, 2025, the announcement landed, and everything around it buzzed with speculation. Mark took a short break from their show to film in Atlanta and stepped into the role of Robbie Rivers, a reporter in Sidney Prescott's quiet Indiana town. Robbie carried ambition and edges that promised tension with Gale Weathers, a familiar face from the franchise. Fans wondered how Mark, known for Riverdale and American Horror Story, would fit into such an iconic series and what this shift meant for the story's direction. Robbie Rivers himself carried echoes from the past. His name pointed back to Robbie Mercer from Scream 4, a character fans still talk about because of how suddenly he was taken in the lineup of victims. That link made people think the writers were weaving a deeper thread through the story. Robbie Rivers hosted a morning show in Pine Grove and ran his own broadcast series, making him the first male reporter in the franchise with that level of visibility. His rivalry with Gale was expected to spark new conflict, and many fans believed his arrival might reshape the dynamic entirely. The choice felt intentional, almost like a nod to longtime followers who look for hidden pieces scattered through the films. Kelly added fuel to the excitement when she joked on air that Mark might be the killer. She kept repeating that he told her nothing because he respected the secrecy around the project. Even at home, he stayed quiet, and Kelly said she knew less about his character than the public did. Their son, Michael, now 28, said this was the most impressive role his father ever booked and called it the coolest thing he had ever done. Mark planned to give Michael a leather-bound script once the film came out, but couldn't share a single page until then. All of this made the mystery thicker and turned Mark's involvement into a major talking point as the February 27, 2026 release date crept closer. Beyond the excitement, the film lived under a heavy shadow. Melissa Barrera, who played Sam Carpenter, was fired in November 2023 after social media posts about the Israel-Hamas conflict, and backlash followed immediately. Fans felt the decision cut short her character's arc and damaged the heart of the story. The trailer, released on October 30th, 2025, reignited anger, and talk of boycotts echoed across the internet. Barrera's exit triggered more departures. Jenna Ortega walked away and later said the project felt like it was falling apart after Barrera was removed. Director Christopher Landon quit too because he had designed the film around Sam Carpenter and refused to move forward without her. The franchise nearly collapsed under the weight of those exits. To save it, the studio brought back legacy characters. Neve Campbell returned as Sidney Prescott, Courtney Cox came back as Gale Weathers, Matthew Lillard reappeared as Stu Macker, and Scott Foley stepped into the light again as Roman Bridger. With these older threads restored, the story shifted, pulling Mark's character into a world that was now tied tightly to the past. Fans wondered how a new face could fit into a franchise shaken by so much turmoil, especially with such dramatic departures from its modern stars. Mark's leap from daytime host to horror star created a strange but exciting contrast. People who watched him every morning now saw him stepping into a secretive role surrounded by blood, tension, and suspense. His earlier performances as antagonists showed he could hold darker energy when needed, and the studio hoped his presence would help rebuild trust with audiences who felt the franchise had lost its balance. The secrecy around his role kept growing. Kelly joked that Mark was like a vault. He told her nothing, and she said she had never been so clueless about one of his jobs. That silence turned into fuel for theories. Fans guessed he could be a red herring meant to distract the audience, or maybe someone tangled so deeply in the plot that he would change the story entirely. Some believed Robbie Rivers would aim directly at Gale Weathers, pushing the battle between reporters into something sharp and personal. Others thought he could be Ghostface, hidden under the mask until the final twist. With every interview and every silence, the curiosity grew. All of it built toward the same moment, the release on February 27, 2026, when every secret would finally step into the light. Until then, the questions kept rising, one after another, and Mark Consuelos stayed right in the center of the storm, holding every answer close while the world kept trying to guess what he was about to do.